maybe two now. We don't know about Mercedes. It's not going to be so. The other two walk in. And call the March 13th, 20. We ready to communicate? We're going 20 March 13th, 2023 budget. Info budget, and then we move forward. We will stand for the flags.
To the flag of the United States, to the republic, and nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
The introductions, I'm Mark here for chair, and if you could start with you.
Sure. Pete Bauer, geographer. I work for a renewable energy company, builds large scale solar projects, and I make maps mostly. I have a son who is going to be joining Fort High School next year as a freshman.
He's going to start the yard with Mark. I take your lessons.
School board.
Melinda Fisher, budget committee member.
Nicholas Hopkins, budget committee member, been in the fellowship already for 5 years. I've been around for many years as a pharmacist for 36 years, retired 3 years ago. And then I work with Kiwanis organization, John and I. The governor elect for Kiwanis, so that's a different way. I'm very busy with that too. And I enjoy what I'm doing. So thank you for having me.
And business manager.
Dave Parker, superintendent. Okay, thank you. Approval of the March 13, 2023 agenda, which I'll move that we approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Okay. All that approve. Okay. That passes. Let's see, elect budget committee chair. So this is the next order of business is elect the chair for the budget committee. And there are nominations.
So you like to wait for the 2 people come in, so we can do that, maybe. There's no way to move it out.
Yeah, we're not sure that they're going to be here. Probably should move forward because we need to elect a chair, and the chair will run the commission. Peter, are you interested?
I love it. Pretty much summarizes that.
I will be.
I'll do it if somebody needs to be there.
Will you?
Sure.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I
Nominate this person.
Yeah, right.
That's true. I'm not here, you know. That's the rule.
I'll nominate. I'll nominate. Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll help Pete.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Let's see. Budget committee vice chair. Who would act in, Peter, that you're pretty motivated to be here. There, somebody who would be vice chair.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Either way.
For vice chair, I'm going to make a motion for vice chair, all second. On the first. Right, And, I think with that, for this evening, I think that's, and then we turn it over to Eileen. That's the evening.
Thank you guys for taking the time tonight to be here for kind of our kickoff to the 22-23 budget season. And it's hard to believe that we're already talking about next year. Tonight is our first unofficial budget committee meeting. So the first official one is the night of the budget presentation where we give the budget message and the budget document itself. Today and the next budget meeting, kind of our preliminary budget meetings that work up to that. So thank you. Tonight we'll talk about kind of budget 101, just an overview of what the budget committee is, the roles, responsibilities, the calendar. And then we'll talk about just building the budget and how we build the budget and kind of our background of how we get our resources and how we spend those resources. And then finally, just do a quick update on our current state of our general plan for this year. To start with budget 101. A budget committee is required by Oregon law for us to bring together a community of both board members and community members to review and receive the budget document. Oregon law requires certain ways of us to present the document itself and certain procedures for the budget process. So through this process, we are trying to meet all of those. Part of it is encouraging opportunities for public to participate in the process. One of those ways is through you guys holding public comment or one or more of your budget committee meetings, an opportunity for public to come in and voice their thoughts on the budget. And then the next requirement is at the board hearing, we are required to have an additional layer of public comment. And then lastly, it's just really you guys serving as a role of our community, members of our community in this role and through this process, and listening to the budget. So those are the three required ways for community engagement, but there's always encouraging and avenues for more engagement than that. That is our minimum. A budget requires us, the budget document and the budget process provides us the justification for spending taxpayer dollars and imposing the property taxes on our community. And then lastly, it controls the spending of public funds. So it sets the maximum limit that we can spend of public funds. Budget itself, our budget is a financial plan. It's an estimate of the year of what we anticipate receiving in resources and expenditures for the next fiscal year. Our year goes from July 1st to 2023 to June 30th of 2024, and that's the budget that we'll be presenting to you. It is an estimate of how we plan on what we plan on receiving for the year and what we plan on spending for the year, but as you know, financial plans can always change. We can get more resources, we can get less resources, spend more, spend less. And so we have to take that plan and that's what we move forward with and then kind of adapt from there as we go. But that is the plan for how we go into the new year. And then again, it is our authority on spending public funds. So this is what provides that justification of that spending. Key dates for this process, January all the way through May and early June, we are doing a lot of the internal work for preparing the budget. We're working with administrators, we're working with department heads, we're working with enrollment projections and state projections and doing all of that data gathering. And then at the same process, tonight is the first kickoff for the budget committee. And the March 13th and April 24th are the two preliminary budget committee meetings. May 11th will be the first official budget committee meeting where the budget is proposed to you. Superintendent Parker does the delivers his budget message. And then once that is done, then the budget is really in your guys' hands to deliberate and discuss and really dive into that budget. The one requirement, and two requirements are that we have to have the budget adopted by the school board by June 30th in order for us to spend any money July 1st. So salaries, labor costs, anything after July 1st. So that budget hearing and adoption has to happen before the June 30th date. And then we have to certify the taxes with the county by July 7th in order for that imposition to happen at the November time. So those are the two drop dead dates. Looking at the three different kind of groups that are involved in the budget process, we have the budget committee, which is this team here. The purpose of this committee is really to receive the budget, review the budget, dissect the budget, and ultimately approve a budget. The board is who sets district goals and policies. And then administration, we work to prepare the budget initially, but once you receive the budget, we serve as an advisory capacity. So then it is really in your guys' hands. We are here to help provide information, answer questions, but yeah. Okay. Responsibilities specific to the budget committee itself. The budget committee, the budget document becomes a public document at the time it is presented to you guys. So up until that point, it's an internal working document. It's not open for public to view until you guys receive it. Once you receive it as a budget committee, it is open for community members, anybody to look at the budget, analyze it, ask questions, but up until that point, it's kind of our working document. You as a budget committee are here to really listen to the budget message, understand the changes that are in the budget document, listen to public comment and consider the public comment, discuss, revise, test the budget against our goals, and then ultimately approve a budget, maximum appropriations and tax rate at the end. Quick reminder of the budget committee, what is not the role of the budget committee. The budget committee doesn't set specific staffing salaries, COLA, insurance rates, benefits. The budget committee doesn't place specific staff in specific positions or discuss individual employees. The budget committee doesn't add or delete programs or develop policies. These are all for kind of administration for operations and for the board. So just a note as we're going through this, the budget itself should reflect things that have been implemented by the board and negotiated with our contracts and stuff. But if we're negotiating something with our unions at a COLA and a benefit level, that isn't necessarily the conversation we're having today. A quick reminder of the budget process itself. All of our budget meetings are open to public meeting laws. They're open to public for viewing. We have to have majority vote is required to take action. We have to have a quorum to conduct any business. We have to have a certain number of budget committee members here in order to have our meetings. And then I think I went through some of those in the last slide. Just another reminder, we have to have the budget approved by the board by June. This is a snapshot of what was the result of last year's budget. So at the end of the budget process, what we're looking for is an approval from our budget committee and board for a maximum spending by major fund and major function. This shows the general fund and then instruction, support services, facility. It goes on to special revenues, food service, debt service. What we're looking for by the end of this process is a maximum spending limit by major fund and function. what is the maximum amount we can spend on general fund instruction, general fund support service, and so forth down. So this is an example of what you'll receive at a future budget meeting that shows everything that's included in the budget document that's proposed. Our accounting structure, this is just a quick overview of what you'll see through this process. When we're talking major fund, major function, major objects, we are required by Oregon law to use this accounting structure. The fund is the revenue source and what the funds are supposed to be used for. So if it's general fund, it's going to be resources we receive for any operations in our district. If it's grant funds, it's going to be a grant or a special revenue that we've received that we can only use for a specific purpose. And so we're keeping those funds separate. Our debt service is our debt payments, capital, enterprise, internal service, and trust fund. Those are our different resources and big components where we get our funds from. Major function, again, is it's how we're spending the revenue. So instruction, when we're talking instruction, that is direct classroom. Instruction is going to be your classroom teacher, your classroom aide, classroom supply, anything that's directly related to instructing students. Support services is going to be pretty much everything else. That's going to be your counselor, your administrator, district office, facilities, transportation, custodial, all of the other things. Is under that support services. Enterprise and community, most everything that's in there is going to be our food service program. And then we do have some other community benefits that we offer that are in there, like summer school or just any other community related that's not related to the general everyday. Then major object. Everything we do, we like to break out by what type of expenditure it is: salaries, benefits, service, supply. So those big three categories, the first three sections of our account number is what you'll see throughout the budget process. So once the budget committee has an opportunity to receive the budget, listen to public comment, review, dissect, discuss, ask for more questions. When you're done, you'll have 4 options with the budget. You can approve the budget that's proposed with no changes. You can increase the appropriation amount. So if you think we're going to have more resources than what we built into the budget, you can say we're going to have more resources, so we're going to have more spending. And it's going to be in instruction or it's going to be in support services. You can say we can increase our resources. Or if you think that through the budget process and what's proposed to you, we have too much resources in it, you can decrease the resources and then decrease the spend. And then last, you can move between major functions. So if you think we have too much allocated to support services and we need to move it to instruction, that move between major functions. So those are the things that we can, the options that you have as a budget committee when you're discussing in the final recommendation. And then that is all by fund, major funds. So general fund, support service.
So the question, increase and decrease in the appropriation balance. Trying to think how that would happen. And once you present the budget to us, it has, I assume, all of the resources. I guess my question is, the numbers have changed by the time you know?
In some years it could, depending on what the legislative session is doing, but we're going to prepare and present the budget that we know is in the best need for the district, and we can count on the resources, and we can, we're gonna present to you the best plan. However, like, we're in a current legislative year. Right now, it's at a $9.9 billion state school fund estimate. We can come and say, no, by the time the legislator's gonna close the session, we think it's gonna be 10-3. And then present a budget to you, and you guys could be like, whoa, that seems too high. We need to back it down a little bit, back to what's more in alignment with what we're currently hearing. Not that we're doing that, but that is an option. Or if we prepare a 9-9 budget and we're hearing more things, or you guys believe by June 30th, the legislature is gonna find more funds towards the state school fund, you can say, no, we believe it's gonna come in. So I mean, that's an example.
Has historically that number sort of panned out as things going on? I'm just curious what the historical record shows.
Every other year, we know what it's the biennial funding.
Yeah,
This year, what we're hearing right now is a 9-9. The co-chair's budget is gonna be released in the next couple of weeks. We plan on preparing our budget based on the co-chair's budget, because that's gonna be the best information we have. And we probably won't know anything else until after the budget is adopted, by the time we get it. So we will most likely prepare a budget that is the co-chair's budget, the best information that we have.
has the district historically been able to take advantage of grant monies and things going along sort of between now and when it would get approved that, you know, historically to have help elevate that number? Is that kind of where the most increase has been noticed, or is it the state, or?
We take advantage of as much grant resources as we can. The last couple of years with COVID and additional ESSER funds and stimulus revenue, we've utilized that revenue significantly, and that's going to be the first way we utilize revenue. And then you'll see tonight, like, our fund balance is higher than what we would typically have this year. But that is because we're utilizing other resources and grants first, rather than using our general fund.
If we build a budget,
Then we can always come back to the board for an increase in appropriation. Yeah. If it's over a certain percentage, then we'll do a public hearing, we'll put it in the newspaper and do a public hearing. But, depending on what that is. All right, to start talking about just kind of building blocks of the budget, what components we look at in building the budget. We start with identifying all the resources that we have available. So looking at our general fund, looking at our enrollment projections, because our funding is based on enrollment primarily in the state. Looking at all of our special revenue grants, any capital improvements that we have, we passed the bond. So next year you'll see the budget's going to be significantly increased in the 400 fund function, the 400 funds to support that bond and bond spending. So we're looking at all of our resources available to us and all of the resources we have going into the new year. And there's a lot of different, like, our grants, it's going to be everything from title to IDA, Measure 98, Student Success Act, ESSER funds, all of those grants that we have, we'll be looking at all of those individually and together, and then everything that goes into the state school fund and our general fund. And so first we start with identifying the resources that we have. Then we look at identifying the expenditures. And when we're looking at identifying the expenditures, we're looking at a few different things. We're looking at what is our current staffing level, and current staffing level isn't necessarily we have X number of teachers this year, we're going to have X number of teachers next year. It's we have this number of students. To be able to maintain that class size, our staffing level needs to maintain at this. And so we're looking at current spending as current level of spending needed to maintain the services for the number of students that we have. Then we look at evaluating all of our spending, evaluating what we're doing right now, what needs to change, what are strategic plan initiatives and things happening. We look at what contracts we have, our bargained amounts with our unions, our contracts with our partners or third-party partners, and what impacts those are going to have on the fund. Then we look at identifying all of the priorities in the strategic plan I talked about. And then lastly, we look at what is our ending fund balance need, not only to maintain our board policy of 8%, but what is that fund balance that we need to maintain stability over the next 2 to 3 years. So those are the things that we're identifying from the start. When we look at our expenditures, I talked briefly about how we look at roll forward, maintaining our class size. When we budget 2 different ways for our spending, and I'm talking thinking general fund specifically. Our school buildings, we look at enrollment particularly, the number of students and the demographic of those students in those buildings. And then allocate staffing based on that. So allocate administration, allocate teaching, IAs, all based on students and the demographics of the students in those buildings. And then the building discretionary budget, so what our buildings have for supplies and materials are also on a per student basis. And that is weighted a little bit with demographics too. So our schools are all enrollment based. Then when we look at district level programs and departments, we're essentially budgeting zero base. So we're budgeting from the ground up. So when I do my budget for the business office or maintenance or transportation, I'm not only looking at what have we done the last 2 years, but I'm looking at what contracts do I have? What are the rate increases for those? And I'm line item budgeting everything. So department budgets are zero up. Building budgets are based on enrollment and demographics, so that is equitable between all the buildings. And then we take our staffing and our union costs and all of our bargaining costs, making sure that we are maintaining the benefit levels and the leaves and applying sub costs and temp time costs and applying that back into the building. So that's kind of separate, and we're making sure that that is incorporated into all of the other budgets. And then once we do that, it's really a conversation about how we think about it. Because it never happens where we look at our resources and we look at our expenditures and they equal zero. But at the end of the day, we have to prepare a budget that our revenues have to be there. So over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to finish gathering all the data. And then the second half of April is when we have conversations internally, we have conversations with our stakeholders, and we focus on balancing the budget. And then the first 2 weeks of May up until, well, the first week of May up until you guys get the budget document, we're preparing the document, preparing all the data, and finalizing it. So the next few weeks is for budgeting.
I need another question here. If you have some money from last year, I don't remember, can you use it this year or use it?
We take, so if it's a department budget or a building budget, ending the year, any leftover goes into our ending fund line, and it becomes revenue in our beginning fund line. So if my department business office doesn't use $50,000, it goes to the ending fund line, and then the district as a whole gets to prioritize that for the next budget. This slide just kind of gives some additional resources if you guys want some materials to fall asleep with that night. There's a lot of resources out there on Oregon budgeting law and our requirements and information. I just wanted to make sure you guys had additional resources if you have more. And I'm happy to help if you have any questions or need more information. All right. Now, I tried to go into some kind of building blocks, just to build a base of knowledge before you guys get the budget presentation. It's gonna show some information on how we've spent our money or how we've received our money, revenue, for the last audited year, and then how we spent those resources. And then lastly, on this one, it's gonna be how we compare to other districts that are similar size to us. So to start with, 2021-22 is our last audited year, the last one we closed out. So everything you'll see from here on is all based on last fiscal year. We received, excluding beginning fund balance roll forward, we received $108 million in new resources district-wide. 67% of that is our general fund. That's our operating resources. Everything else that we receive is specific to a specific product. It can only be used for that reason on why we receive those funds. So if it's a grant for a particular spending, it has to be used for that. So 67% is what we have for our day-to-day operations. Looking at that 66%, the general fund itself, since that's what we have the most control over, that is, I wanted to spend some more time, and that's what I'll talk about more specifically tonight, is just general fund itself. We, of those resources, almost 70% is from the state school fund, 19% from property taxes. Then we have the county school fund, common school fund, and state timber. The last 7.7% is everything else that we receive resources. But their interest, student fees, E-rate, reimbursable expenditures, like everything else, just kind of building use gets put into that last 7%. Everything outside of that other resources category is part of the state school fund calculation. So our state school fund has an equalization formula, where it doesn't penalize districts for being in poverty, and it doesn't give additional resources to districts that have higher economics. So if a district has more property taxes per student, they're going to get less state school fund. And if they have, for example, we have a couple of districts in our state that have state timber, significant amount of state timber. They don't get any state school fund. So when we're looking at what is controllable by that state school fund formula, it is everything in that pie except for that other resource. And that is all student enrollment driven.
Is grants and other resources, or is that?
This is general fund only. So that last slide, Enrique. This slide,
Oh,
grants is that red tie shape. And then that blue general fund, that's what I'm talking, that's the state school fund one that I was just going over. So when we're looking at general fund, that's what we have the most control over for, and that's what does our day-to-day operations for our district. So that's this piece.
Does the state timber fluctuate very much from?
For us,
Yeah.
we get between, some years is more than others. We get between 800,000 to 1.2, 1.3 million a year. I typically budget around 800,000, which is kind of unpredictable. So this year we're at probably $1 million. Timber taxes.
so 21, 22, the tail end of COVID is still in the middle of it, right? So I guess historically, how weird is this last audited year, 21, 22, right? I mean,
In total resources,
yeah, I mean, is it about what we would expect, or is it?
our resources, since it was the second year of the biennium, they didn't change significantly. We did have an increase in property taxes, just because property values continue to rise in our
Yeah.
community. It is part of the state school fund, and so, but I think everywhere in the state seen that too, not everywhere, but most on average, they've seen an increase in property taxes, so. That was the biggest surprise for us, is the increase in property taxes. This is our enrollment since, looking at that high over 90%, 93% of the general fund is based on the state school fund, and we get funded based on our student enrollment and demographics of students. This shows the last 10 years enrollment for our district. In the 22-23 school year, we had 5,771 students. And this is, it's not students at a point in time, it's the average membership over the course of the year of student enrollment. And then we also get funded on, we get additional weights for students on IEP, we get additional weights for English as a second language, poverty, pregnant, parenting, and foster. We have about 14% of our enrollment is in students on an IEP. We have 19% of our enrollment, English as a second language, and 11% is poverty. These look a little different because when the state allocates weights to us for the demographics, we get a full weight for IEPs. So you'll see the full 14% on here. We only get half a weight for English as a second language. And then we get a quarter weight for poverty. So that's how the state is looking at, we get a weight for every student and then additional weights for the demographics. So every district is going to be a little bit different just because every district has a little bit different demographics. General fund expenditures, this is how we spent our resources last year. We spent about $70 million in general fund, of which 78% was in salaries and benefits. So significant amount of our general fund budget is in labor costs. We do contract out services like transportation and custodial. If that labor was in-house, our labor benefits would be significantly higher, but that you're seeing is the services. So overall, it's almost 80%, and then we do have quite a bit of services that are contracted. Looking at how we spend our resources by major function over time, historically, we trend about 65% of our general fund spend on instruction and the rest on support services. So 65% is direct classroom instruction. How we compare to other like districts, this piece we look at on what a like district is for us. We look at the size of districts, so how many students they have. A medium-sized district in our state is between 4,000 and 7,000 students. We're right in the middle of that. We have about 5,700 weights, 5,700 students. And then we're also looking at what their ESL, IEP, poverty weights are. So we're trying to find, and there's no district that's going to be exactly like ours. There's no district, but we try to get a range to try to determine, identify districts that could be close to us to be able to compare to. And then for district comparables, we have, in looking at last year's data, we have Centennial, Canby, Hermiston, Redmond, McMinnville, Corvallis, and New York. That in one way or another, well, they're all within student population similar to us. And then they either have similar IEP counts, similar ESL counts, or similar poverty to us. So those are the districts that I try to pull from to see how we're spending our resources and compare against. Looking at those districts, this is from the state ODE website. They publish every year a net operating expenditures comparison, so we can see how much we're spending per student. across the district. The orange bar is the average, and the black star just above it is where we're at. We spent last year in 21-22 about $11,193 per student. Looking at the data for the audited financials for the district, comparable districts, Hermiston, Redmond, McMinnville, and Corvallis were the only ones that have published audited financials at the time that I pulled this 4 weeks ago. So those are the ones that I'm looking at for comparing our district to. We spent about 63% of our funds this year and compared in instruction as compared to the average right around 6%. So looking at those other 4 districts, we are slightly above average. This is the same thing, just a lot of numbers if you wanted to see more detail around where that is specifically by departments. But I'm happy to answer any questions later. I just wanted to provide that for you. Looking at a different way of viewing how we spend comparative, we look at by function and then we look at by object. We spent just under 80% of our expenditures on labor and benefits, which is slightly below other districts that we compared against. However, this one is a lot harder to compare apples to apples with because districts contract out services differently at every place. Some contract out sub-services, some contract out custodial, some contract out transportation, some have all of those in-house. So this is one view of looking at it, but it's a lot harder to be comparative there. You'll see much bigger swings. Our fund balance is the last thing comparing to other districts that I have for you tonight. Fund balance is required for long-term financial stability. We want to make sure that we have a fund balance to be able to get us going into the next year, and we can make we can balance out like over time and plan over a course of a couple of years. So our board policy is a minimum of 8%. We typically end the year, we typically budget around an 8% and around a 14% pre-COVID. Since COVID happened, our spending trends have been significantly different. Staffing shortages have been pretty significant. Staffing turnover has been pretty significant, and we've utilized grants. We've utilized all of our, as much of our ESSER grants and federal stimulus funds and as much as possible over the last 2 years. So last year we did end at the 24% that you put up.
This is typical of what other school districts found that their end balance is substantially down.
Yeah, a lot of districts, their fund balance is higher than what they had planned. Some districts, it's every district is in a different place. Yeah.
Some did better than others.
Well, it's
Say it.
partly what the conversation is right now at the state level around the 10.3. Because there's very large districts around us that have their fund balances much lower and needing that 10.3 to not have to start cutting. And so that's part of the conversation that's happening at the state right now is having funds as we transition out of the reliance on ESSER and some of these other pieces, because that money's going away. And so there's some real challenges right now. Our fund balance makes our transition smoother. But
I think it's right, is transitioning out of the COVID stimulus funds and having all of these additional grant resources is going to be a challenge for us. And we've tried to phase it in over time. So we spent heavily in the first couple of years and like cutting it in half and cutting it in half. So we're like trying to phase ourselves out of it. It is going to feel like a loss next year and the year after as we completely exit off of that because we do have a lot of spending in those federal stimulus. We have a lot of IA down the buildings. We have, our health aides are with that, like, so when those funds go away, it is gonna feel like a loss for our district. But I don't think it's gonna be as severe as what I've heard others are.
Personally, I don't think we should feel bad about a 24% fund balance, especially with the way the economy's going to be changing in the next couple of years. I think I mean, we're in a pretty good spot, and I think we should be proud of where we are right now. So, and I understand the whole transition out of the grants, those kinds of things, but personally, gone through early years where we didn't have a fund balance and we were having to make reductions that were just crazy. I personally feel pretty good about that balance. So,
I remember one year in January, you were coming in. That's really, I mean, that's good. Hats off to you guys. You.
It's all of us. I mean, people are, and honestly, it's not that we haven't allocated out the funds. I mean, we've allocated out a lot of the funds. We've given them resources. But as staffing has turned over and, you know, people higher on the salary schedule have exited and people newer on the salary schedule are coming in. We also have departments that are being very frugal. Like they have a budget, anticipated spending it, but maybe, you know, there's some constraints. So they're like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to spend this. And so we do, I mean, it is district wide right now.
And I think we've been conservative, which I think is really.
And class sizes were, some of the best. I mean, we're still, especially K4, especially, yeah, so I mean, we're in a pretty good spot and we shouldn't, I think where Brad is headed is, as we come out of this, we should try to build sustainable year after year, improvements is kind of where we want to head.
nice and flat all the way, but not of those dips like we were going through in the 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where we're up and we're down. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So turning waves into rebels, just what you were saying. Is why a healthy fund balance is nice because it can help protect us. This just kind of shows historical, and I talked a little bit about it in the last slide. We typically try to budget between an 8 and 10% ending fund balance. Pre-COVID, we were ending 14, 15%. Now that COVID has hit, our ending fund balance has grown. We're still budgeting around that 8 to 10%, but we're saving and our spending trends have just changed significantly over the last 2 years. So we're still trying to, work through that and determine if the spending trends are going to continue or if we're going to get back to the pre-pandemic spending to see how conservative it can be. So just a little bit of historical information on where we budgeted the actual. And we have a couple more slides, so sorry, I said I wasn't going to take a full hour. Quick financial updates for the budget committee on where we are today as where we were this time last year when we met last May. And a reminder, we built the budget for the 22-23 year on a $9.3 billion state school fund. We were maintaining post-pandemic enrollment, so maintaining the lower enrollment and maintaining lower classes. We really wanted to maintain those lower classes. And we have maintained lower classes this year. Our target is 23.5 to 1 K4, and we're significant. We're much lower than that right now. On average, we have those pockets, and we have those bubbles just like, but on average, we're maintaining pretty good class size in K4. And then as far as the grants, Measure 98 SSA, federal stimulus funds, we budgeted to fully spend. So just a quick overview of the last time we met at the budget committee on what this year was built on. This slide is gonna look really familiar to the board. This is the budget update cash flow projection that was presented to you guys last month. I only have one major change that I'll talk about in a minute, so I didn't do a full budget update this month for you. But I did want to kind of let you know where we are this year and what I'm seeing today. Overall, we had said that the general fund, we budgeted $88 million in general fund. We are looking at $91 million. So we're up 3.7 million in resources this year, and we are down 2.9 million in spending. The resources is due primarily to us utilizing grants to the greatest extent possible when we closed out the year last year. Any grants that were going to expire, any grants that were going away, we fully spent them. So we really tried to utilize other resources as much as we could at the end of the year. And we have a significant increase in interest revenue this year as compared to what we have had the last several years and what we built into the budget. Interest rates have really increased pretty consistently and steadily since last May. So that was another pretty big impact to the budget for resources. Expenditures, I talked about that a little bit, and then a lot of it is just staffing shortages, staffing turnover, and just changes in the staffing level. So part of that is utilizing current staffing and grants. So utilizing more experienced teachers and grants, and then hiring temporaries to come in. So we might see some of that shift over in the next year or two as those grants expire. But the one thing that did change from what was presented at the last board meeting is we did get an update in the state school fund from ODE last week. And from that, I do anticipate us ending at a 20% budget. I do expect us to end somewhere between that and where we ended last year. The biggest change in the state school fund estimate that we just received is statewide, the enrollment decrease. Every spring and every year. So like right now, we're expending ODER projections for next year. And then ODE bases the state school fund and the state school fund allocation based on the projection. In December of every year, ODE looks at and takes the snapshot of actual enrollment across our state and then gives us a new update. So if we look at this, it's kind of hard to see, but that statewide ADMW, the last two lines, the 22-23 budget, that's 681,000 students. That is what was budgeted this time last year from all of the schools in the state. So all of it put in our projections and then we use that. The most recent update based on the December enrollment is showing 671,000 kids. So that drop of a 1% loss is pretty significant. The state is a single pot of money, and the more students, the less amount of revenue per student you get. The less students, the more amount you get per student. So if the state enrollment drops, then our amount per student increases. Right. So we have that in combination to, if you look over towards the right a little bit, you have the course growth annual change kind of in the middle. We increased a 0.89% as compared to what we had projected. So the state dropped and we increased. So we have both of those impacting us and both of us giving us more resources or more part of that state school fund. So based on that, we'll see an increase in our revenue compared to the forecast. Yeah.
Thanks. Think the trend will be like that in the next 1 to 5 years?
We had an enrollment study done for our district last year, and it says that it'll take us the 10 years that the enrollment study was done for us to make up our loss from the pandemic. The state anticipates us to start bringing back some of the kids that have been homeschooled. So a lot of kids that went to homeschool in kindergarten, first grade then they're in second grade, third grade, and if they get older, their belief, from my understanding, is that as students get older, it's gonna be harder to stay at home. Kids are gonna wanna be, you know, in school, the education is just gonna get harder. So they do believe that students are gonna start to migrate back to the schools, whether it's next year, they thought it was gonna be this year, that's why. But it didn't necessarily happen. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely hard because we all thought that the enrollment was gonna start bumping up a little bit. We were gonna start getting some of that return from homeschool back. And we did a little bit, but statewide, they still lost.
Well, it's a nationwide issue right now, that not only do they not know where the kids are.
Yeah.
Now, some are being homeschooled, some are missing in action.
Yes.
So,
There's a lot missing in action.
Statewide is part of it, people moving out of the state at all, or do you think it's mostly just people staying at home, or
Yeah,
hard to say?
it's hard to say. I think our community is hard because we have a lot of, we don't have as much lower income housing. So a lot of the newer homes being built north of the high school in that area, it's a lot of people's second or homes, you know, so their kids are already graduated. It's not, those developments aren't bringing in a student enrollment, so it's not really people moving into our community, even though our community is growing.
and I believe it's 40% of communities, seniors. So it's, we know, in California and other places.
We'll say in Washington County, both, Beaverton, Hillsborough, or so our 2% increase was a nice, that was nice, that was good, you know.
And I've been budgeting for funding, so I've been budgeting maintaining our enrollment. Just because the state allows us that for funding, so you can't get funded you get funded the greater of the prior year or the current year. So if you're declining, and if our enrollment declined, we would still get funded on the base. And so that's what I've been budgeting, even though when we're looking at staffing projection, I'm adding some enrollment to places and pockets to see like, for staffing and building allocation. But I think with us and our fund balance, we have the flexibility to do that right now. In past years, I was budgeting our staffing and allocations based on exactly what enrollment was projected to be. Right now, I have the flexibility to budget on floor, so that's the minimum level of funding we're going to get. But then we can allocate out staffing based on a slight increase.
We're talking about enrollment. I looked at the enrollment sheet of count. The count is like, I've never seen calculate 100. It says it's 181. Oh, I mean, is that an accurate number?
Yeah, we've got a set of digital kids that are about 55 kids. And so, but the rest of that are kids who are at Calc now, either in the full-time program or in the student-centered achievement. And so, yeah, we're already coming up against kind of the new limits of where it's at.
Now, I've never seen an over, I mean, I've seen 60, maybe 9. And I looked at this and I'm gonna get this out to make sure that he's doing a great job over there.
Yeah. And it's gonna mean some adjustment in the staffing too, to correct those pieces. And it's a different program, so he has different needs too, just around IA support and some of that. But I think he's already kind of working on what those numbers will look like.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And the last slide, just kind of things that are coming up that we're keeping an eye on right now. State School Fund, ODE is constantly looking at 3 years, reconciling the past year, updating the current year, and then providing us forecasts for the new year. So we are in the next few weeks, between now and the first or second week of May, we should be getting updates on all 3 years. And so we're trying to incorporate those into the budget. We want to make sure as we're looking at budget and balancing the budget, that we are identifying long-term impact and long-term permanent costs versus temporary one-time costs and not using, we want to make sure that we're not using the full fund balance and what we're bringing the fund balance down to as permanent ongoing costs, because fund balance is a one-time resource. So we just wanting to recognize that and look at that as we go through the budget process. And then as far as, I got ahead of myself earlier, but the budget, we are looking at budgeting on the co-chair's budget. It should come out in the next couple of weeks. The governor's budget was 9.9 billion, it'll be a little below that, but we'll see when it comes out. And then, OASBO's current service level is 10.3. They talked about that briefly a minute ago, where some districts need that 10.3 to maintain current service level going forward in the new year. Us, we will be okay with the 9. Kind of where we're at right now.
But you'll take the template.
I'll take that. Yes.
You go. Bill.
It's interesting because the 9.9, we're still burning that in fund balance, so we're not sustaining at that level. But we have any fund balance that allows us to do that. So the 10.3 is closer to what really is a service level we could maintain year after year.
So. Yeah. And then next time we meet is April 24th, budget committee. It probably won't be as much information. It most likely will not be as much information as tonight. But then we'll just kind of go over like what we're hearing as needs for the new year and kind of where we're at and things that we have for you. And then the budget will be proposed at that first meeting in May. And if you have any questions over the next few weeks or any of this information, please reach out.
I think we'll be together in May.
You will get a really nice book that you can.
Cherish for years.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. You want to adjourn?
Should we adjourn the meeting?
Unless there's any.
I have a question. You know how you're talking about the numbers outside of your paper report? Are the numbers in the higher grade?
They do go up as you go up. K for our target when we budgeted is 23.5 to 1. 5, 6 is 28 to 1. 9, 12 I think is 28, 29 to 1. So it does kind of go up as you go up in the grade level. And from class to class, you might have a bump up or a bump down depending on how the building is. Some of our buildings have 4 strands of classes going through, so they can manage bubbles a little bit more, but some buildings only have 2. And so when you add a couple of kids to only 2 classes, then your numbers can fluctuate.
I think we actually got to say the word adjourn.
Okay.
We stay here.
Anybody else have questions? Comments, good jokes? I move we approve, we adjourn meeting.
Thank you.
Hey. Ah.
Oh, yeah. That's all there.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, okay. I'll call the meeting to order on March 13th, 2023, Morrisville School District Board of Directors meeting. Roll call board members present, Mark Everett, board chair, Roger Carroll, vice chair.
Ingrid Dusty, board member.
Miley Vernon, student rep.
Okay, and our Ingram and Darcy Rodriguez, who will be joining us this evening. Would you please stand with the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a quick introduction of audience and staff. Perhaps we could start with you here, sir.
Ricky Carter, Nutrition Services Director.
Thank you.
I'd like to include business. Kim Shearer, Student Services.
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Cynthia Hugh, Accounting.
Mark Hughes, Facilities Director.
Brian Tilburg, Mid-Columbia Bus. David Warner, Communications.
Enrique Pinion, Technology.
Thank you very much. Okay, approve tonight's agenda. A motion to approve tonight's agenda. So moved.
Second.
Okay, the roll call vote on in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Miley, do you have a student member?
Oh, okay.
Over to you.
Yes, okay. So our food pantry is getting about 75 families a week, so just keep that in mind. We are looking for space for a clothing closet. I'm not sure 100% about that, but we do have one in school. And then for elections, they are this week, they're campaigning this week. And we do have 6 people running for ASU president, which is a lot, more than we've ever had. So, LIA, I'm just gonna read off of this, but LIA is doing an ethnic studies course. It's basically learning about more of their culture and their indigenous people. And then they are tutoring some days. Renaissance is working on a Women's History Month and Disability Month, and they're just trying to find, so looking up women in different demographics, and then they're gonna put it on, I think, screen thingy, whatever, I can't remember what those are called, but they're putting it on that, I'm pretty sure. And then ASB doing elections, we are planning for some things in the future, some spirit weeks and stuff like that. Renaissance also did put out clovers with everyone's name of the school on it, so if you walk into the cafeteria, clovers are everywhere on the walls, and so students can grab them with their name on it. Other than that, I mean, on our calendar notes, we do have school conferences, and then our spring musical Grease, which is coming up in the following weeks. Other than that, there's not that much stuff. And spring sports, I guess, started, which you probably know already, but yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Turn it over to Mr. Parker here for the superintendent report.
Just wanted to first highlight last Thursday, we had the Belonging Summit. And this was we've seen a market increase in both disruptive behavior, social media, bullying, gang behavior. So we were bringing people together to just make sure that we can talk about these situations. We had 61 families, about 150 people who came. It was it's very positive. We had like Virginia Garcia, and our tag coordinator was there. We had our mental health and behavior counselors there, and migrants, and had a lot of folks there to just so parents could ask questions. I will give a shout out to Ricky, who we had a dinner for folks, and we had our wires crossed, and there was no one to hand out the food. So Ricky called up, volunteered somebody, and but they showed up, and we got everything served, and so just appreciated him kind of stepping in and kind of helping out. I think again, during the pandemic, we lost contact with these kids, and making sure that there's a trusted adult at the school that they know that they can link into is really important. I think we lost some of that. So a lot of our conversations is why we call it the Belonging Summit, because it's not really just about the discipline of when kids break our rules. It's about how we're connecting them into school, whether it's through activities or through sports, or whether it's just through academics and kind of a trusted adult. We've got some work to do in that area, and I think bringing parents together and start talking about it was a great thing. Again, I want to just, Juliana and Christy, they just did the majority of the work on this at the middle school. Tomas Sepulveda spoke, Colleen Lord, Chief Ryman was there. So it was really, and I'm sure there's everybody in here also played a part in it. So I really appreciate people coming together to talk about it. And it's not something that's just Forest Grove. This is I hear it from every superintendent, whether we're here in Oregon or whether we're talking about Texas. Spring break 2 weeks away. So just want to remind folks, it falls on March 27th through the 31st. So keep your eyes open for that. School resumes on April 3rd. And then I just want to give an update on the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. We finalized our choice on this. We're ready to communicate, but where there's the district that this person resides in, they're in spring break this week. So we're not going to be able to coordinate with them until next Monday. So that's when we will communicate about this, and we're not stalling. It's just, we need to do it the right way. So that's what's going on with that. We're really excited about it. And I want to make sure I let people know what was going on. And that's it for superintendent comments.
Okay. All right, thank you. Unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comment. Public comments will be made in person or submitted through the designated form on the web page. Be read by district staff or registered Zoom participants who indicated through the form they wanted to provide their comment live. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol for board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed to be. Are there any public comments? Okay, thank you. Let's see, we move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent agenda consent items a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss them? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda. Okay, thank you. A roll call vote, any in the yes? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And yes, okay. All right. Presentations. We have one presentation, support services annual report. Again.
That button on the bottom. Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right. So tonight we have for you the annual support services presentation. In your board packet is the full report on support services over the last year and some highlights of our programs. When we're looking at support services for this report, we're looking at transportation, custodial, maintenance, grounds, and food services. Tonight we have for you of these programs, it consists of about $14 million for general fund budget this year. So these are our large contracts and our large support service operations. Tonight we have Mark Hughes with Sodexo here to talk to you about custodial and maintenance management. And then we have Ricky Carter with nutrition services and Brian Schulberg with transportation and Columbia Bus. So these three are here tonight just to go over a few of the highlights that are in the report.
Thank you, Eileen. Hi, everyone. So I haven't been able to talk to you for almost a year in a group, but I think we spoke, well, not with you, Mark, everybody else here. Up there, I have really how I like to approach problems. Obstacles not block the path, the obstacle is the path. And so when this year, we have so much going on every year, we'll change 1,500 filters twice a year. And now there's all the room air purifiers, there's controls, there's, you know, clocks that we reset 4 times a year in the parking lot, lights, exterior lights. Just the continuation on and on of so much maintenance. Custodial does so much that we have to take care of. I have personally cleaned several of our schools because the staff has been short. 7 people up until January. We started hiring and we're finally fully staffed. So that's pretty good news for me. Go ahead, okay. We had a lot of things going on this summer. I'll mainly focus on facilities because that's what I do. But windows at Harvey Clark, we went ahead and changed out. We also changed them at Dilly. Go ahead. And so if you remember the old windows, this looks pretty good. It made it look pretty good. Go ahead. Okay. Then there was this little thing at the high school that happened, and this is one of those obstacles in the path. So, you know, you can either let it make your day go bad, or like me, I just love it because that's what I do. Go ahead, Mickey. So I just want to show you a few pictures of the damage here, and then next. Here we had to strip out a lot of the walls to dry. Go ahead. There's another. So altogether, they're 4 foot by 12 foot sheets of sheetrock. We put 100 of them in the building, along with all the insulation. All the rooms had ceiling tiles that had to go in. These guys wanted 3 weeks to do the drywall. I gave them 1. They did it in 1. Go ahead, Enrique. Got the painting crew in there on their heels. In fact, they were still doing drywall work downstairs while we're painting upstairs. Go ahead. And then we got that. All this while we were remodeling calc. Go ahead. So that was a lot of fun to do this. Calc was a fun one. We got the occupancy the day before school started from the city. Yeah, go ahead. And we were also doing Neil Armstrong roof. Put a 10-year coating on that, so it's not a second layer of roof, it's just 10-year coating, and then that means we can put another layer of roofing on top of that after it works out. So I also get the privilege of managing grounds. I like to send Jeremy pictures of things that we see around that we need to take care of, and I mean within hours usually it's taken care of. We were doing a contractor walkthrough over at Echo Shot. I sent him pictures of mud where you go through the gate to get into the yard. And while I'm still doing the contractor walkthrough, here comes the truck and the guys are putting chips in there. So Harvey Clark, there was a couple of trees we had to take down. They were dead standing oaks or walls. Custodial, they're on the right. You see their Randy and Jesus. They pretty much take care of it. Behind them is the gym floor, where we put together all those mats every year for the events. This was graduation, I believe. On the left, this is the crew. We were cleaning up Cal. The science wing, cleaning it all up before occupying it. Go ahead. So in summary, wow, the part where I love bacon, and now it's food service attorney. The kids. For me, yeah, it's the unknown every day when you walk into, and whether or not your custodians are going to show up. So that's a challenge. Yeah, everything else is, it's enjoyable. I've been here over 3 years now, and I'm surprised I made it this long, but you know, I'm enjoying it because I've got, for me, I've had my own construction company over 30 years, so I have now an endless flow of customers. Some are really happy, others, you know.
The band was, that was seen in that bathroom at school. you have a ballpark figure what that cost?
No, it's mainly, labor to clean it up, labor to, you know, we'll spend money, we put some anti-graffiti coating on bathroom stalls, in Armstrong, and it, you know, it works somewhat, it makes it easier to clean off, but, you know, they find out that we can clean it and then turn around and do the wall still. So then there's paint, and so it goes on for days.
You see an increase from last year?
No. Well, last year was really, this year is just that. And, and last year was really a lot of fun. For those kids.
I would just say that what you did at the high school, that when I toured it, was pretty fresh still. That was an amazing job.
Well,
They're ready to go.
Yeah, it's the, thank you, and it's the people that, you know, the contacts that we have as, you know, contractors over the years, we just make phone calls to get it done.
But like you said, they wanted 3 weeks and you gave them a week, so I appreciate that. So
We have, yeah. I get once a year to take credit.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
One of the comments he did in town was, I mean, it's just that beautiful, you know, how you model those rooms upstairs and the color way too much, but it's really, I think the environment, when you walk in and some places neat and inviting, it's a real boost for the kids, and then seeing the enrollment there, plus, you know, we have a new principal there, but.
It's really, this year, yeah, it feels really good in there.
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Mark, the one thing you left off your slideshow is a picture of you shoveling snow at Gill Creek.
Library for the. It looks really good.
It's not my fault, it took over 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sweet. I'm going to back away from the microphone because my voice tends to carry and I don't want to sound like I'm eating the microphone. So just let me know if you're having trouble hearing me or not. I'm Ricky Carter, I'm the Nutrition Services Director, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to address you guys. I actually lost a little sleep. Well, I have a 19-month-old, so I lost sleep because of him as well, but just to feel excited about talking about our program. The slide you see up here kind of highlights the incredible job that our staff did of overcoming some of our staffing challenges. Last year, it was really hard to fill those positions. We only have about 4 open positions district-wide. Now, of course, we will have some staff miss because illnesses, things like that happen. People's immune system still getting used to post-pandemic kind of situations, but we've really done a great job filling some of the gaps. I give a lot of credit to my assistant director, Amanda Krupp, for really doing the job finding us, not just people to fill the gaps, but quality people who really enjoy the work and want to feed the kids and excited about the work that they're doing. So that highlights that. That segues into some of our upcoming projects. The NAMS project, we're kind of going to reimagine the service line there. More information for that to come, but that will have the addition of digital menu boards. The foodie, the new menu initiative that we're going to start there, just something to give the kids more options for food service, more involved menu. So again, there's more upcoming with that. We're just kind of looking into some of the specs with some of the physical work that's going to have to take place. Taste for something that we're really excited about. We've been implementing that at the high school. Again, it's kind of like with foodie, but just for the high school kids. More imaginative, evolved menus and products, more stations to be available for the kids. The digital menu boards that will kind of have quizzes, games, something that really gets the kids interactive and engaged. That half an hour that they spend is one of some of the bulk of their social time when they're there at the school. So we want to make sure that we're giving them a great atmosphere during that service. The capture survey is something that we do every year to really get into our student engagement. We take photos of things to gain feedback of some of the things that the students like, and then you gain feedback of some of those things the students don't like. Because if you're trying to evolve your program, you're trying to get better, like we all try to do every day as human beings, you want to have engage that feedback, and we openly do that in our program. Some of the things that they like some non-wrap on the burgers, you know, all about sustainability, especially in the state that we live in. Some of the presentation in the food, some of the things that some of the students said that they didn't like. One young man came up to me and was like, "Sir, we need more tater tots. There has to be more tots in the kitchen." And we were like, "Bro, we'll take care of the tots. That's gonna be great." Some of the buns, they said they like the bread being baked fresh every day, but some of our burger buns, they didn't always like the presentation of that. Our staff works hard on presentation all the time. Some of the pictures that you'll see on our social media handles, which I'll kind of segue into the next slide before that. That's not doctored in a food photo booth or anything. We don't take any pictures and comb up the food. The food that you see in the pictures on our social media everywhere is the food that we are putting on the plate for the kids every day. That's just tremendous dedication of our staff for presentation, and not just presentation, but the quality of the food that we put on those plates. We take great pride in what we do. The Future Chefs competition. You want to take 15 kids, the next generation of cooks, put them into a competition to have great food in front of their parents, and then watch it all become magic. So that competition happens on March 24th. Some of you will be notified to help judge. I'm looking at some people out in the crowd and some board members. Judging happens around 1 o'clock, but it's something that we do annually every year. We love engaging with the kids, getting that kind of competition. The culinary program at the high school actually has allowed us to be able to use their kitchen. Great atmosphere for it, great equipment to be able to utilize and get the best out of the kids and what they're trying to present in the competition. So we're very grateful, so shout out to them. And then our marketing outreach. Two aspects of that. One is to identify families who qualify for free and reduced applications to help those families in need. The second aspect of the marketing outreach is to maintain our Provision 2 program, which allows us the opportunity to serve kids breakfast at no charge. This program is essential to maintain for many reasons. As you guys, some of you have probably heard, there's lots of statistics that show that kids who eat breakfast in the morning have less disciplinary problems, better attendance, better nutrition habits, and overall better cognitive thoughts as they're going through class to gain the knowledge that they need to evolve and succeed in the classroom. So we encourage everyone to check out our social media, Facebook handle, Instagram, all those places. There's applications available on our really great Mooresboro School District website. I love that website. So interactive. You go to other districts, their websites are, all right. Ours is just really spot on and great. So, I mean, great job as far as that goes. Really get into getting these applications to these families. We need to be able to serve these kids breakfast for free. The hustle and bustle that parents go through to get the kids into the schools, get to work all at one time. They don't always have the time to be able to feed these kids. This program enables us to feed them for free and consistently. And for all the reasons that I've cited, you can look up a lot of materials on healthychildren.org and nokidhungry.org to back up the things that I'm saying, that it is essential that we have these kids be able to eat breakfast. So please encourage families to fill out those applications. It's really important. And then we also have tried to be we were at the NIMS event last Thursday, being able to engage our families and talk to them, show them that the face of our program. We have these handy dandy pens, QR codes. Some of our trucks with our couriers will have the free and reduced applications on there. The QR code works. QR code works. Okay, on there, so just trying to find innovative ways to be able to reach families, as many families as possible. The fight against hunger is apparent in our community. It is rampant everywhere. It doesn't have a face. It hides in plain sight. And it is our responsibility, not just the members of this board, but everyone in this room, to engage that fight and feed as many kids as humanly possible. That's the mission of our program. That's what we all are in here to do. Student first. So, and then, was that next slide? Thanks, okay. Our meal participation, I cannot tell you the tremendous effort that it took to not only just engaging the challenges, but some of the supply chain shortages that we've had to be able to get these lunch meal participation to this high of a number. And that is all my staff. I try to take an approach of a servant leadership approach. I'm here to make their lives easier so they can make our kids feel welcome in those spaces and feed them so they can learn and do and become great people. And our staff does a tremendous job of doing everything from presentation to working when they're tired, caterings, everything like that to feed the kids. So it's a shout out to them, and I'm proud to be their leader and to help serve them, make their lives better. So that statistic kind of highlights that. And that is the end of my presentation. Questions? I'm looking at you, Ms. G.
The kids always call me Mrs. G. Didn't we offer, lunch for everyone in our district?
We did, but we had waivers through the pandemic that were enabled us to offer that now. Do we all wish for a world of universally free lunch? Absolutely, absolutely. Who wouldn't want to feed the kids free? But the waivers weren't renewed, obviously renew those waivers, so we're left with what we do. So that's why we encourage the free and reduced applications, so we can identify, and then EIG, of course, the income eligible group, encourage families to fill that application so we can identify them. You'd be surprised how many families don't realize that that program is available and don't know about it. So we're trying to get as much information like we could through social media. We have a bi-weekly newsletter that we engage with our building administrators that I send out as well. To get as much information as we can so we can up that participation. We want to be kids. It's as simple as that.
Do you have a question? I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the snack program, you guys participate in the snack program, or is that?
It's that, no, that's not really what we're into, is that, but at times we can offer information to help them with that program, but that's not really what we do. We just try to feed most students in the district.
Have you had your dollars cut to support lunches for the children?
No, in fact, because of some of the great work that we did during the pandemic, we have a spend down balance that we're trying to help with for some of these programs that we highlighted there to improve the environment. And there's equipment grants available that we've applied for as well, just so we can help in every aspect, improve the students' quality of life as far as when they're involved in our program. You operate, participate, and can do amazing things when you've got a full belly. So people eat to live, and some people live to eat. I live to eat, and so do a lot of our students. So
Thank you.
thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Good again.
Woo!
Good evening. I'm Brian Schilberg with Mid-Columbia. This year we've had several focuses, but it's same as Sodexo, is staffing that seems to be the name of the game, right? Now we've had kids returning to buses that have not been on buses. Right, the parents have been transporting, and so they're learning now and trying to set that expectation for those kiddos as to what is the expectation on bus. But the name of the operation is the staffing. This is our full-time staff. I'll take you for just a minute, take you through a little exercise. So I know you've been through a budget meeting tonight, but I'm asking you to get out your pencils and do a little bit more math. All right. So I want you to pick a number between 1 and 9. Now multiply that number by 2. Add 5. Now multiply that number by 50. All right. Now, if you've had your birthday this year, I want you to add 1,773. If you have not, then I want you to add 1,772. Now, subtract the year you were born. That should give you a 3-digit number. The first digit will be the number you started with, and the last 2 digits will be your age. You don't have to reveal the last 2 digits. All right, why would I take you through that exercise? We have a formula that creates and takes the applicants that we get and turns them into good qualified school bus drivers. We know the formula works, but it doesn't necessarily work for every person. And some of you may have not gotten the right answer. You may have not come up with that answer. And as you can see from our chart here, we've had 62 applications. Of those 18 the school bus drivers, and, 18 we hired, we've started their training, 13 have become drivers and are now driving a route course. That number industry-wide is we typically get between 1 and 2 drivers out of every 10 applications. So normally to get 13 drivers, we have to have a lot more applications. So what we're doing in this market, because of the limited applications, is we're using our trainers to help mentor and do things with those drivers to help take the limited number of people that we get access to and turn them into good qualified school bus drivers. We're happy to report that we're fully staffed, though, like everyone else, we would like more, right? To cover those absences, those things that occur, that we still need some more help, right? So go ahead to the next one. These are our trainers, Carolyn, Kelly, Mary, John, and John. And they do a great job as we move those potential drivers in and out, back and forth to get the personalities, but they're learning, the way they learn matched up with a trainer that connects with them to help them become that qualified driver. Also this year, we're required to make sure that all of our diesel engines are manufactured after 2007. Your fleet is fully in compliance. You'll remember a few years ago, we joined together and we turned most of your fleet into propane. So the majority of propane, so already clean fuel burning, but we're way ahead of your in compliance of that. So there's not even an issue that that's even on the radar, but we did want to report that your fleet is in excellent condition and we're well in compliance of that. Get one more.
Try to restart your computer.
Try.
All right. Additionally, in there, the drug and alcohol reporting requirements have changed through FMCSA. So that's all in place. We are now fully online with that and compliant to that. Years ago, you'll remember that you had to send out a letter to the previous employer 3 times, wait for that to come back, and rarely did you ever get anything back. That's now all computerized, where you just enter their driver's license information and get an immediate response or almost immediate response. So it just helps us ensure that all those individuals are in compliance. So we're most excited about keeping those people on the road, making sure that we have all the people that are necessary to get the kiddos. One of the slides would show that the academic miles driven have gone up by more than 3 times versus during the pandemic. So you would see that the needs in the district are being met as we increase those programs to help the kids.
So I see this, 2021, that was when, he went down to the lockout, so.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah, and most of those miles were, the sped program, those things that were more individualized, right? And then, much of that time was in the lockdown.
Thank you.
Brian, one question I have for you is the staffing, like our bus staffing before 2018 compared to now, is it similar size? You may not have those numbers, but I'm just kind of curious.
It's just a little bit less. Yeah, it's just a little bit less, just because of, you'll notice that, prior to, we were, up over more than 100 special education runs, we're now at 70, so. So as we're growing, we're adding staff to be ready for that, but it is down a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, all three of you for coming and presenting. It's great to hear the good things that you're doing throughout the district, transportation, our facilities, and then the food service. So thank you very much.
I would also just say that can appreciate, from all of our contracting partners, they're really good partners. Like, roll up their sleeves. You talked about Mark and we talked about Ricky. As I talked to the bus one at 4 a.m., they're also good partners for us. So I just appreciate kind of the way that they work with us. It's really good.
Okay, we go on to action items. The next part of the agenda, I think we have 4 action items. The first one is integrated guidance application. Mr. Parker is going to speak.
Yeah, just kind of briefly. Yeah, you betcha. I haven't received any questions on this, so I'm assuming that people understand. The summary of this is basically, after all of the work, we basically like the things that were in our spreadsheet, and about the only pieces, the calc principle, the DLP TOSA, there isn't enough money currently the way that ODE has forecasted this for us to fund everything we did this year. So we moved the calc principle and the DLP TOSA. We have other funding sources for them, which, to be honest, we need to move the calc principle to a general fund. Other than that, there's some class size pieces that we trimmed down that we are going to have to look at. They were basically filling bubbles. So it was extra FTE just to make sure that we could handle things. Other than that, we're basically buying what we've already invested in. I can take questions if anybody's have.
Any questions? No? Okay. I'll move that we approve the integrated guidance application.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. I'm a yes. Brad?
I'm a yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Next action item is HB 2747 inter-district transfer process timeline and open swap.
So haven't received any questions on this. So this is pretty standard for us. We do have one slight change, which is we're increasing the Echo Shaw 6th grade slots by 1. We've had there was a student who we needed to increase it. Other than as presented. So there's the one amendment.
Thanks.
I move to approve the recommended transfer window timeline and open slots into and out of district as presented, and adding 1 slot at Echo Shaw as for 6th grade.
Second
Moved and seconded. I'm a yes. Brad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee appointment. The board approved the timeline and application of the January 23rd, 2023 board meeting. The committee members were appointed at the February 27th, 2023 meeting. 2 board members are also needed to serve on these committees, or on this committee. We have one application and two student recommendations from the high school. The board set the first meeting date for April 10th, 2023, and once the committee is established, the committee will work together to create a meeting schedule. We will need to continue to look for additional community members to serve on this committee. So, first motion that's needed, there's two items that we have to address this evening. One is appointing citizens to the bond oversight committee, and the second one is appointing two board members to the bond oversight committee. So we'll do the first one here, and that is, and I'll just make the motion to approve to appoint Blake Wandell, Harrison McGarver, and America Gutierrez to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. All right, moved and seconded. So on that motion, I am a yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That one passes. And then the second one, we had some discussion last time about board members sitting on this committee. I know Val and Darcy were here last time. Kate, you were here kind of on the call. You were kind of in and out on that. Yeah, right. So I don't know if Kate and Darcy are gone this evening. I don't know if you've had time to consider it or.
I would just like to know when the dates are.
Well, April 10th will be the first meeting. It'll be basically quarterly. It's pretty painless, but it'll be the kind of the oversight of the spending of the bond. So it'll be us providing information about how the bond is rolling out and giving the community and the board an opportunity to look at it.
Okay, I'll serve.
Okay, thanks, Kate. And then for the other one, I think. Okay. Al's been nominated, seconded, and so so we'll do a vote. I move to appoint board member Kate Grandusky and board member Val Ingram to serve on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I second it.
Brad seconds. So it moved and seconded. I'm a yes, Brad
Yes.
and Kate. Okay. So that motion passes. We'll notify Val. Okay, the last action item is edu staff substitute service contract by presented by Eddie.
Hi. Tonight we have the EduStaff substitute service contract. The district has been contracting with Northwest Regional ESD over the last several years to do our sub services. So they do all the hiring and manage the sub process. The ESD chose to look at other options of whether offering that service in-house because they have limited staff, or using a third party was going to be more beneficial. And they chose to go out for an RFP for third party substitute services and allow their component districts to use that RFP and process and contract to do sub-services in the future. Right now, our options are to either bring the sub-service management in-house and recruiting and training, or to utilize EduStaff through the ESD contract, or to go out for our own RFP process. The ESD is only going to provide sub-services management through our current agreement until the end of this school year. Since then, we have had 2 meetings with EduStaff. We've talked to them about the services and their offerings. One of the biggest benefits, I think, is going to be dedicated staff. So that is their mission. That is what they do, is they do sub-services for school districts. They have recruiting and recruitment staff, and they have marketing plans. So they're going to be actively engaging with our community and actively recruiting substitutes. So tonight, what we have for you is the contract approval to utilize EduStaff through the ESD's contract and RFP process for us to move forward with our sub-services through edge staff moving forward.
So that's the recommendation then?
That is recommendation.
Okay.
So it is gonna cost us more money?
No, I looked at it and it's gonna be pretty break even, but the benefit is we're gonna get that recruiting and like that recruiting outreach and the marketing outreach. They are gonna have dedicated staff for that specifically, and then they have trainings and they can do the background checks, so they can do the whole process. So I think our fill rates are actually gonna increase. So it shouldn't cost us more, but we should see better services and better substitutes and fill rates for our buildings.
And they've been in this business for quite a while.
Or other
Yeah.
districts? Or what the rest?
There are a lot of districts, all of Northwest Regional districts that use Northwest Regional for such services will most likely move towards EDU staff. I believe Corvallis and McMinnville already use EDU staff. So there's a lot of districts around us, and Dave and I outreached to them and gotten really good recommendations. So we're
I hope it works because it's really, really, really needed and
Yeah.
so I hope it works.
yes.
Okay,
Okay. Well, you make a motion.
sure.
Okay. I move to approve the district to contract substitute services with EDUS staff and utilize the RFP and contract negotiated by Northwest Regional Education Service District as described.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. I'm a yes.
Yeah.
Brad, Kate,
I mean, that's awesome.
that motion passes. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay, future action items. Looks like we have 3 of them. The first one is SB 8858 Children's Services District Bill. And Kate, it's a little bit of the history. I think this is, Kate, you emailed me about this one, and I think we signed on to a different bill, which is, it is a sort of change to a new bill for this legislative session, same idea. And I don't know, well, that's what, yeah,
I was gonna do soon. She told me this coming.
Yeah.
But he's not there, so I guess if there are questions, I can send them.
yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't, I don't know enough about it and I don't know what signing on to this, I don't know if there's a tax implication in this. And if so, I would like to know what that is ahead of time.
Well, this is an action.
No, it's not, it's a future discussion. And, yeah,
And, what I remember, and I haven't seen the dollar amount, but it was like 0.001% tax within Washington County. And originally what they wanted to do was do this, Washington County Kids After School Program, for the whole state. And then, Janine, the other state representative, she said, let's do it in one area to see how effective and accountable it is. And you know, in Western Washington, you know, there's really not banks or schools, gas, and really not a lot of services for the kids for after school programs. And, you know, when John O'Neill went and worked with the staff with the COVID, what was the money? Was it the first year of COVID that we had the summer program for the kids? And that was just such a wonderful, wonderful program. And the parents and the kids really, I mean, it was a win-win all the way around. And I have been a real supporter of this. What I don't know is, I don't know the actual dollar amount that it's a very, very, very low percentage that each person will have. So we should, I'll call Katie and ask her to give us some financial dollar amounts. Because I don't have that. I thought he was going to be here, otherwise I would have bought that.
I think that's the best thing to do, and we just don't have enough information, and if we can get some of the financials on it, I think that would be good. So, well, maybe we put it on again as a future action item for the next meeting.
yeah, is that right, future action, item. You know, we'll just skip it.
Who would be here first? Not sure. I don't know. I don't know, but I will also call.
Okay, all right, thanks, Kate. All right, the second future action item is, Mr. O'Neill with the 2023-24 state calendar.
So the district is presenting the draft of the 23-24 school calendar for first reading. An abbreviated district calendar committee met once to discuss and develop a proposed calendar. The committee proposed the draft calendar following the same format as last year's. So basically, this is just a rollover from this year's dates. First workday of teachers, Monday, August 28th. First day for grades 1, 5, 7, 9, Tuesday, September 5th. First day for kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, Friday, September 6th. First late start, Wednesday, September 13th. Thanksgiving break, Wednesday through Friday, November 25th through 27th. Winter break, Monday, December 18th through December 29th. High school graduation, June 8th. And last day for teachers, Monday, June 17th. We have upcoming district calendar committee with the unions representatives involved Monday, March 20th from 2:30 to 3:30. And if any board member would like to attend, you can. You're welcome. Just let me know and I'll add you to the invite. Pretty simple, just roll forward.
I think the Thanksgiving break day is incorrect then, because Wednesday is the 22nd of November. So look at
Yes.
the month down. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It's on the sheet, okay?
Yeah.
It's on-
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I just,
Good catch.
I think this,
Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say you'd be happy to serve on the block.
really.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's it, unless are there any items board members would like to add to the current list, or are there any committees or other activities board members have attended that they would like to report on? But I think that the enrollment report, the financial report are included in the board packet. And so I think, other than that, I think we are adjourned at 7:39.